Welcome to Crime in Court. My name is Heather, and this is going to be a pretty quick update in the Sandra Birchmore case. So, obviously, we are talking about Sandra Birchmore, whose life was taken from her. It has now been ruled a homicide by two independent forensic pathologists and not what it was originally ruled as a self deletion. And Sandra Birchmore was pregnant. So we're going to, sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle that she was, I mean, we all know that she was pregnant, but we want to talk a little bit more about why aren't the feds going after that charge for the infant, the fetus? So let's kind of get started. We're going to talk about Billy Farwell first. A real quick update with him, twin brother of Matthew Farwell, who has been arrested and is in detainment right now with federal authorities. So let's get started. I'm trying to do okay. Just keep making myself big and small. That's I don't know. Things aren't working right today. Sorry. All right. So this post was from a Michelle McPhee that I found on Twitter. So she wrote, "So it appears Billy Farwell, like his twin brother Matt, will negotiate a voluntary decertification with the Post Commission." So remember, Billy Farwell and Robert Devine, who are two of the other officers who were to have been, they are alleged and named in a civil suit to have been grooming and SAing Sandra Birchmore, potentially at a young age, definitely using their authority power, that power over her to assert a intimate physical relationship with her as an adult. We don't know for sure about the underage or about her age when it started with Billy or Robert Devine, but Matthew Farwell, the man who is in prison right now, he has admitted that he began relations with her at the age of 15, which is underage. The state, Massachusetts legal age, I guess, or age of consent would be 16. So she was shy of that, but I still think 16 is too young. Anyways, let's move on. So the post commission, remember we've been watching the post commission hearings with Billy Farwell and Robert Devine. Basically, they are trying to keep their certification as officers so that they can continue to work in law enforcement. Well, it appears now, after Matt Farwell has been arrested, Billy Farwell, the twin brother, will negotiate a voluntary decertification with the Post Commission in a closed door negotiation September 19th. He has left Massachusetts and is now registered with the Arizona National Guard and is a spokesperson. And that is what a spokesperson from the military said. So he is with the Arizona National Guard. Does he deserve to be there? Isn't that kind of law enforcement too? Should we allow him to go from one to another? But he's voluntarily decertifying. He's moved to another state. He's quitting the badge, but he's still in the National Guard. So what do you guys think of that? Let me know. Should he even be employed in such a position? Let me know. All right, so next, let's move on to this article. This is what I wanted the topic of discussion to be about: justice for Baby Birchmore. Baby Birchmore gets not talked about as much because of the whole grooming and essaying thing. It kind of overshadows everything. So let's talk about the Baby Birchmore. And we want to make sure that that the baby gets justice as well. So this is a Boston Herald article that was published Sunday, September 15th. and it is titled Life for a Life Unborn Victims of Violence Act Not Used in Birchmore Homicide Case. Why not? So that is a good question. We know she was pregnant. We know she claimed that Matthew Farwell was the father, and he denies it, of course. However, she was adamant, and she told many, many, many people, and I don't think that he was expecting that she would tell so many people, but she did. And word got out. Somebody called Matthew Farwell's police department. Somebody took the call and didn't report it, but told Matthew Farwell, "Hey, somebody's calling and saying you're having a relationship with Sandra Birchmore," and that that it had been going on since she was underage. And at that point, that's about when he decided, I think, to take her life because he was realizing she was a much bigger problem than he had anticipated. This, of course, is my speculation, but that is what I believe. She was also pressuring him to have some sort of relationship with the baby, and she also was allegedly trying to get a big chunk of child support from him, kind of an unrealistic amount. I think it was like $4,000 a month. So it just kind of shows that she had this level of immaturity, and it wasn't anything on her part. I think it was because she's been emotionally, developmentally stunted because of all of the SACA that was going on, the grooming, when she was in the Explorers program with the police, the Stoughton Police Department. All right, so let's read this article, Sandra Birchmore's Unborn by Flint McColgan. Flint McColgan. Okay, sorry, this is a little blurry, so bear with me. The gruesome details of the homicide of Sandra Birchmore, allegedly at the hands of a former Stoughton cop who had impregnated her, have been or have some calling for an additional charge for the taking of the life of the unborn baby. I agree. I think he should have 2 counts of homicide on his charges there, his indictments. It is hard to imagine more clear It is hard to imagine a more clear-cut case for enforcing federal law for protecting unborn children than this one, said Roger Severino, the vice president of domestic policy at the Heritage Foundation. He continues saying, when the very existence of the unborn child was the very evidence against this monster, why the heck was there no testing? That's a big problem. The DNA of the baby was never taken, and Matthew Farwell refused to give a DNA sample. So there's that. So it just kind of shows some consciousness of guilt, in my opinion. All right, so former Stoughton Police Department Matthew Farwell is accused of taking the life of 23-year-old Birchmore in her Canton apartment not too long after she had excitedly revealed to him that she was pregnant with their child by texting him a photograph of a handmade card saying, "Congrats, we're going to be parents." And that was in my thumbnail, and that is also pictured here in the article. Farwell, 38, of Northeaston, is accused of entering Birchmore's Canton apartment on February 1st, 2021, and we know he did because there's video of him doing this. And this we don't have video, but we have video of him entering the lobby. Sorry, I didn't mean to confuse. So he is alleged to have strangled her to loss of life as he knew that she was weeks pregnant. Prosecutors say that he staged the apartment to make it look like Birchmore had committed a self unaliving. She was roughly 2 months pregnant. By that point, Farwell had known Birchmore for almost 11 years. Birchmore, at 12 years old, joined the Police Explorers Academy, a youth program run by the SPD for which Farwell taught. So if she started at 12, the The grooming may have started at that young of an age, but it didn't. But it took until she was a little bit older for him to maybe get her comfortable. I don't know. Maybe it took him a little longer to get comfortable with her. I have no idea. But in my opinion, predators like this, they're always looking for um, the next one, their next victim, I guess. So I feel like he probably had his eye on her at that young of an age, 12 years old. And remember, when she was 12, she looked like she was 9. When she was 14, she looked like she was 10. Like she really didn't, she looked very young for her age and was very small and petite, which makes it even more disgusting. All right, where was I? Prosecutors say blah blah blah. All right, the married man. Yeah, prosecutors say Farwell first groomed the girl and then took her virginity when she was 15. That is confirmed. He has admitted to that. And it is in text messages between the two of them where she literally talks about when you took my virginity on this such and such date, and it gives the year, and by all logical math, she was underage. She was 15. So the married man, oh, and by the way, he took her virginity just a few weeks before he was getting married. And yeah, we know he was also having his third child. He was due to have his third baby with his wife the very next day after Sandra's life was taken from her. So it's not all like these can't all be coincidences. You put the whole picture together, it makes sense. So the married man, 12 years Birchmore Sr., who had 3 children and with his wife maintained a physical relationship with the young woman, court documents allege, until she lost her life. So they were still in like a relationship. To Sandra, it was a relationship, but it's the only kind of relationship she knew, which was men using and abusing her. So there's that. But and it really goes to show in her text messages to him too, where she was like trying to get more and more from him regarding his involvement in the baby's life, and he was backing off in the conversation, but she was trying to say, well, I'll even be okay with if you just see them like once, and on holidays you come like a couple days before and we do our own thing. Like trying to picture this life that she's going to have with him because he's never going to leave his wife for her because she is the one thing that could get him put in prison. He's never going to admit to anything that he was doing with her at any time. Eventually, he had to because they seized his communications. But before that, he was not in any way going to do that. All right, so the charges. The feds charged Farwell with taking the life of victim or witness to a federal crime as they hung his illicit actions on ripping off his employer for having physical, intimate rendezvous while he was on the clock. So he was arranging to have relations with Sandra while he was working. Some of the occasions happened in his cruiser. To some outside observers, there is a missing element in the charges against the alleged crooked cop, the unborn baby, that by all accounts Birchmore was very excited to have, as the pregnancy appeared to be in the inciting action. Oh, it appeared to be the inciting action. So that is what kind of led him to do what he did, that led him to uh, take her life. Some could see that the unborn as the actual intended victim in this case. So Sandra, I think I could say that they would both be victims. And yes, I can see how you could say getting rid, if the baby's the problem and that's the intended target in his crime, then taking Sandra out eliminates the target. But she was a threat because she was opening her mouth. So I think he needed to, or in his mind, he felt like he needed to end her talking. In a press conference last month announcing the indictment of Matthew Farwell, both acting U.S. Attorney Joshua Levy and a representative of the Boston FBI Assistant Special Agent in charge, Steve Kelleher, emphasized that the unborn baby is part of the story. So we need to make sure that we don't forget baby Birchmore in this whole process. Matthew Farwell's gun and badge did not grant him authority to violate the Constitution and certainly didn't entitle him to physically and intimately exploit, uh, maltreat, and take advantage of a child before taking her life and then taking her unborn baby's life in an attempt to cover up the alleged crime. That was a kind of a paraphrase from Keller because I can't say all those words. All right, so Levy, Josh Levy, stated the impetus for the alleged crime. Ms. Birchmore was very excited about becoming a mother, buying baby clothes and other items, taking precautions to ensure the health of her new child. But Mr. Farwell did not share that excitement. It's alleged Mr. Farwell reacted quite negatively to the news that Sandra Birchmore was pregnant with his child, and he acted angrily. Picture of Matt Farwell. And that's not a mugshot, by the way. That's his department picture. But it looks like a mugshot. I don't know if there is a mugshot circulating because he's federal. He's in federal custody. I don't know if they release mugshots. All right, so the Unborn Victims of Violence Act. This is also known as the Lacey and Connors Law, which I find awesomely sad. It's awesome that Lacey and Connor have a law. I didn't realize that they did. Obviously, that's from the Scott Peterson and Lacey case. Yeah, from the contemporary case of Lacey Peterson and her unborn child's homicide at the hands of her husband and the father, Scott Peterson, was signed into law by President George Bush in 2004. So this act came into place in 2004. The law, according to the Congressional Record Summary, states provides that persons who commit certain federal violent crimes and thereby cause the loss of life or bodily injury to a child who is in utero shall be guilty of a separate offense. So, right there in plain language, it is saying that. Make this, if I make it bigger, it just gets blurrier. All right. So in plain language, uh, the loss of the child in utero, that it should be another charge in and of itself, because that is a loss of life as well. So it requires the punishment for the separate offense to be the same as provided under federal law for the conduct had that injury or loss of life occurred to the unborn child's mother. So it happened to both the baby and the mother, so therefore they should both be charged equally. Some activists have put their name toward pushing for this law to be applied to Matthew Farwell. Colby Mazzarella, an attorney and president of the Pro-Life Legal Defense Fund, told the Herald, I call on acting United States Attorney Joshua Levy to charge Officer Matthew Farwell under USC Section 1841. Mazzarella added, the accusation that a police officer took the life of his former student and their unborn baby strikes horror in every feeling heart. Such monumental selfishness was the reason for the Federal Unborn Victims of Violence Act. This law was passed by Republicans and Democrats to punish and prevent many perpetrators of DV who take the life of pregnant women or use violence to force a woman to end their pregnancy. The Susan B. Anthony Pro Life America group is also pushing for the charge. It is plain that there are two victims in this terrible crime, a young woman and her unborn baby. The Federal Unborn Victims of Violence Act was enacted to ensure justice for both victims in crimes like this, according to Autumn Christensen, the group's vice president of public policy. It is even more relevant when the unborn child themselves may have been the evidence that the accused hoped to dispose of in the crime. So, because, as we have already stated, the baby could have been the target. So, the baby was evidence of their relationship. Before it was, he was telling her to delete messages and all that, but the feds got it. So, you can't delete it forever. All right, so it is even more relevant when the unborn child themselves is the evidence. The federal prosecutors in this case should seek every opportunity to obtain justice for Sandra and her baby, she said. The law was not, the law has not been particularly popular among more left-leaning legal analysts who have argued that despite the law's caveat to allow for, right? So I don't know, to allow for self-determined, um, what is that word that I'm missing a word? Carve out. Carve out. Oh, okay. I read that wrong. The law has not been particularly popular among more left-leaning legal analysts who have argued despite the law's carve out to allow for self-determined loss of pregnancy, its application could endanger a woman's ability to make her own decisions regarding her body. The American Civil Liberties Union, for one, opposed the bill and wrote during its legislative development that it would be the first federal law to recognize a zygote, a fertilized egg, a blastocyst, a pre-implantation embryo, an embryo through week 8 of a pregnancy, or a fetus as an independent victim of a crime, with legal rights distinct from the woman who has been harmed. So that's awesome that the baby has rights. The zygote has rights. The ACLU said it fully supports efforts to punish acts of violence against women that harm or terminate a wanted pregnancy. But the bill, the nonprofit added, is an appropriate method of imposing such punishment. However, because it dangerously seeks to separate the woman from her fetus in the eyes of the law, such separation is merely the first step towards ending a woman's right to determine the fate of her own pregnancy, and to direct the course of her own health care. In Birchmore's case, every indication was that she wanted to have her child. She absolutely did. She was planning and making plans that like you don't make until like your third trimester. She was making tons of plans. So she was ready. She was getting ready. In fact, investigators and prosecutors used the apparent excitement for the child's upcoming birth as key indicators that Birchmore had no intention of committing self deletion. So she didn't want to take herself out because she was excited about this baby. She had things to look forward to. People who want to take their own lives don't look forward to things. They don't see the positive and the hope in things to come. So that is, as it was alleged, she had taken her own life. However, we know now that that is not true. The FBI's Kelleher said, our investigation also uncovered additional evidence that is inconsistent with someone choosing to take their life by self deletion. In the hours leading up to her loss of life, she reached out to a photographer to inquire about booking a newborn photo shoot. So she intended very much to be alive in what, 7 months from that date when she did that because she was about 2 months pregnant. So she didn't intend on losing her life in the next, however, that evening. Um, she reached out to a photographer She also reached out to a friend about obtaining baby clothes. So, adding the charge, Levy left the door open for additional charges, either from his own office or from the local and state agencies with whom the feds share their investigative output on the case. So, that is what I have for you in this episode. What do you guys think? Should the feds also charge Matthew Farwell for the loss of the life of baby Birchmore? I think so. That's my opinion. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye now.